Hello and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. My name's Cliff.
Tim.
Hey, and we're here. It's Halloween, Sunday, October 31st, 2021. And we wanted to do a few things today. We wanted to go through some local legends and lore of our area here in Carter County. But we also wanted to go back into some of the origins of Halloween and how did we get here and how did it make it to our area. So we look, originally we have the festival of Samhain, which is spelled like Samhain. But
I've never knew how
I've always heard it pronounced Samhain, and I've always wondered how people got that pronunciation for it. Never known, never really followed up enough to figure that out. But for whatever, Samhain, however, whatever you call it, it was celebrated by the Celts about 2,000 years ago, and they lived in the UK, Ireland, northern France, that area. I think the Druids were out of that culture, and they had basically it was a celebrate the beginning or the end of the good time where the crops were all about to die. Fall was coming in, and so they would have a big bonfire. They would sacrifice crops and animals to the gods of the Celts, and they would have a big bonfire where they'd throw all this stuff in there. They'd wear animal skins and animal heads as costumes, and they did fortune telling and things like that. Well, they started their new year on the 1st of November. So that was kind of like the burning off of the old year, like we see in so many, like we were talking about Bohemian Grove and Burning Man. Kind of the same concept. It goes back to those.
It really kind of makes the whole thing make a little bit more sense when you start looking at when you start looking at all the dressing it specifically like dead things, and it makes a little bit more sense. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get it. It does. It goes right with how they didn't really understand what was happening as a culture at the time. It was just kind of they had realized that everything was going to die, and that was just part of the cycle of life. So they celebrated it, and they did what they could to try to ask basically the gods to be to bless them in their own way. But eventually, Rome conquered Europe. You know, the Roman Empire took over. They also had a honoring the Souls Day or honoring the Saints Day, right? And it was in May 31st before, but a lot of people figure that to basically appease the pagan cultures and kind of make them easier for them to join in the Christian culture, they moved this day to November 1st, and it was called All Saints Day or All Hallows Day. And so All Hallows Eve was Halloween. That was kind of the pagan festival that kind of kept being celebrated on into that. And then they had All Souls Day, which was the day to honor the dead on the 2nd of November. Now, we were curious.
It's like a 3-day event.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Tim and I were curious before we started this, what was the relation to the Mayan Day of the Dead, if any, and what we
I guess
find?
it would be Mayan, or just I guess the whole Yucatan Peninsula up into Texas. They all sort of have that Dios de los Muertos. I hope I said that correctly.
That sounded right.
The Day of the Dead celebration, and I was wondering when that was. And I couldn't remember because I was having beer commercials in my head clouding when the numbers were. And we looked it up, and it starts on Halloween and goes to November 2nd, and I found that interesting. And before I forget, I got a question now. If Halloween was the end of the year, at what point did the whole winter solstice, December 21st sort of thing, kind of like what were they celebrating first? I guess why was that not the beginning of the? I guess. I find it odd I don't know, is that what they see, like fall as being the decline, and then you have winter as being just dead?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you've also got the combining of the old pagan culture with the culture that already existed, in Rome, which came from Greece, and it was kind of all over the Mediterranean and Middle East, kind of combined to make that culture, and it went through Europe, and it looks like it went because when it came to America, it mostly came from the Irish immigrants, isn't that right?
Irish, Scottish, and I'm wanting to say there was other ones too, because when I was looking at, because we decided we were going to a Halloween episode, so I was like, well, I should probably not not phone it in too completely. There's a lot of Halloween influence that comes from what's known as the Iberian Peninsula, which is Portugal and Spain, which we'll get to in a minute. But I guess it all has to do with cultures that still celebrated Halloween coming all in one location so they could openly celebrate it, which would be the Scots-Irish have that sort of thing in common.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the date would be, but that's what I read was...
Well, from what I could tell, it was, the mid-19th century when a lot of the Scots and the Ulster Scots and the Irish were coming over from the old country. For the potato famine, or there was just a lot. It was hard to have food around there, so a lot of people came to America. And when they got here, they kind of had. It was a tradition in Europe to ask for food for Halloween, going way back. But they kind of brought it back in here, because I think because they were hungry. And they kind of went to, the kids would go door to door asking for food.
Well, that'd be a good way to encourage the people to be charitable, wouldn't it?
It would indeed. And as people continued in this celebration, as Tim said, Halloween kind of came in from New England and from, the new immigrants coming in from there, and then you also had it coming in from the southern part of North America. So it basically got to the north and southern end of North America at the same time. Or, well, I guess it got to South America first.
I guess it got to South America through Spain,
right,
when they conquered South America, which we'll come back to in a minute.
But it did. It kind of made its way up to America through the country, and on up into through the 1800s. You kind of had fortune telling and dressing up and bonfires and kind of the old traditional pagan kind of celebrations. And in the 1920s, you had in big cities in particular, you had a lot of kids like whose parents died during World War One. And so you had a lot of orphans, and you had a lot of teenagers running around together. And on Halloween in particular, they would go out and break things and vandalize and play pranks. So that was when I think it took until to the 50s for it to become widespread, but it kind of trick-or-treating started at that time, because it was basically a way to bribe those unruly youngsters not to bust your windows, throw eggs at your store, and all this stuff. And
it's just like they socially built a skate park.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, same thing. Just let's get these kids something else other than violence.
And the first thing the adults did was start hiding razor blades and drugs in that candy.
All right. No, that's not true. I know you've heard that story before, but there's never been a reported incident of that.
Not one. Has it always been?
No, it's always
fake?
been. And the only time anybody's ever poisoned candy, a guy did it to his own kid for an insurance claim, and he got caught. He poisoned a pixie stick.
What years?
This was in, I think it was either the late 1970s or early 1980s. But you can look it up. You can like pixie stick poisoning Halloween hoax or something.
That was
like
a big kind of
it was
scare there for a minute.
But it wasn't true. Dude did it to his own kid for an insurance claim. He actually poisoned all his kids he gave them all pixie sticks, and they did a big investigation trying to figure out who had given these kids this poison candy. It turned out it was him all along. Yeah, so. But that kind of didn't make it out into the culture as much. A lot of people were still super scared of people poisoning.
80 whatever,
Well, yeah, and even with internet, a lot of people probably still don't know that that's not true. That it was all a hoax. Yeah. And there's never been a reported incident of anybody hiding, get from trick or treating candy. I think there was one person who there was one razor blade incident. But I don't think it was from a trick-or-treat bag. I don't remember the...
It just doesn't make any sense. Like, you would definitely get caught.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was something to do with a razor blade and an apple, but I don't think the kid actually got it trick-or-treating and cut his mouth. I don't think. But, don't quote me on that. I'm just some guy pulling on my memory.
It's a throwaway meme at this point to even say that there's nobody in the right mind going to waste their drugs on your... You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true.
But, I mean, that's... Not done at that one, yeah.
Well, you kind of had people... They were afraid that that basically there were drug dealers lurking around every corner trying to get their children at as young
Oh yeah,
age.
the hook, yeah.
So we're well hooked
Like a
really
kid would
young,
get a
and-
Reese cup laced with something and go know where to even go find the guy that
Yeah,
did it.
exactly.
I
Yeah,
tried
it
your
just-
product.
It just doesn't make any sense.
I knew to meet you here.
So they didn't think that through. I think they just got a little.
Yeah, well, we
a
were
little
pretty stupid
scared
for
and-
believing it. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and with some of the stuff we believe now since the internet's come around is arguably even stupider.
oh, I'm sure I believe dumber things than poison Tootsie Rolls.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah, I'm sure I do too. Hey, so basically that's how we got trick or treating revived. Like I said, it was something. It was an old practice, but we brought it back around. Nationwide, pretty much in the 1950s. And jack-o'-lanterns, though, they go back also to that same. Well, why don't you tell us about it, Tim?
I don't know when the jack-o'-lantern was necessarily like revived for this sort of thing, but looking it up, it started. The furthest I could find back was the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal used to not the whole thing, but I guess what they would call like death cults, people that would do this, which I guess is a negative term because we still save the bodies of our dead. We just don't take them out and parade them around once every year. I'm wanting to say it's in China, but there is a group of people that do bring their ancestors out, and they have essentially like
I've
a parade.
seen that. Yeah, then they live with them and talk to them.
Mhm.
They live like in a cliffside.
Yeah, they like storm in there. Then once a year, they dig them all back out. Let's go. I can't. I'm gonna butcher the name, so I'm not gonna try. But it's called ancestor worship. And but with this form of it, of the particular the Iberian is what I keep calling it because I'm not certain if it's Spanish or Portugal that did it. They would save the skulls of their ancestors, and they wouldn't keep. I don't think they would keep them creepy on the mantle all year long, but they would bring them out and display them in front of the house. That way, when the dead would come through, they'd be like, "Oh, you saved my head." You know what I'm saying? And,
Let's care about me.
and of course, you could. I guess that's where the light inside of them came from. And anyway, it's pretty interesting, but that was too morbid for all cultures to continue doing.
Right.
So, according to what I read on the line, was they used turnips for a while,
Yeah.
especially with the Irish and Scottish and places like that. But the reason they used pumpkins in the United States because that was most abundant.
How do you make a jack-o'-lantern out of a turnip anyway?
You would like carve it.
I mean,
I
yeah,
don't know if you hollow it out like you do a pumpkin. I think that's just convenient.
That's gonna be a pretty lame jack-o'-lantern.
A turnip.
Yeah.
I love it. There's some big turnips. I don't know.
That's almost like a meme in and of itself, for we're suffering in calling ever turnips for jack-o'-lanterns. Yeah, but
Well, that's the ironic thing. Well, not really ironic. They were using the jack-o'-lanterns because they didn't
they didn't have enough.
have the
food,
access
but
to the turnips because we were going to eat our turnips. Irish and Scottish people were going to eat the turnips.
Okay, so we used
Yes.
pumpkins, in which we weren't going to eat. Okay,
Yeah,
that
there
makes
you go.
sense. I always like carving pumpkins. It's super fun. I
Well,
did.
Messy.
I broke out my drill and I made the constellation of Orion and Canis Major this year. So I got a little bit lazy, but it actually looks pretty cool.
You gonna like it?
Oh yeah, I should do that. I'm not even
proud of it enough.
I might even open the show with it. So
There you go.
we'll see. I might put that at the very beginning of a little Halloween card from my family and our jack-o'-lanterns and all that good stuff.
Little. Yeah, or I can.
But yeah, speaking of graves, we sent our correspondent for the Iron Mountain Hour, Orville Redenborker, out to visit a grave site for us today, and we'll go ahead and go to him now to talk about a little bit of local history. Hey there, this is Cliff. I'm here with Orville Redenborker, and we're live. Well, no, we're alive in Carter County, Tennessee. We're at the Highland Cemetery here on Arney Street, and we're at the mausoleum of Granny February. Her real name's Nanny Crow Brister. Granny died in 1931, and while she was alive, she was considered by the children who lived in this area to be a white witch. And she was seen every day after her husband died. She would travel past this cemetery and another cemetery up on Southside Road, and she would commune with her dead husband's spirit, according to the legend. And so by the 50s, the kids had been talking about this a long time. The legend may actually go back later than that, but or earlier than that. But by the 50s, kids were sneaking up here at Halloween at midnight to try to make contact with Granny February. Now, why would they do that? Well, when Granny February was alive, she after her husband died, she had a medical malady, a stroke, a seizure. It's not really clear what, but she was diagnosed as having died. And when she was put in her coffin and put in the mausoleum here, they gave her her favorite rocking chair. The family gave her a favorite rocking chair. Well, Granny actually was not dead and came back and lived a couple more years at home. And then the same thing happened again. She had a stroke, seizure, or something, was left lifeless. People thought she was dead. They put her back into the mausoleum, and this time they left her a bowl of food and a drink, and it's a good thing they did because Granny was not dead this time, according to the legend. So when a few more years went by, Nanny lived at home, and she did indeed die for real this time. They still went ahead and put her rocking chair and a table with some food and drink in there, and this time she really did die. The food molded, the drink evaporated, and Granny was not seen again. Now the legend is that you can come out here at Halloween at midnight, and some versions say that you have to use a mirror and a candle and say her name 5 times. Others say that you just give her some food and she'll say thank you, and that you can hear her rocking chair rocking in there. Now Nanny's body's actually no longer in here, and neither is her rocking chair or her table, as you can see from the beginning of the video. All this stuff was removed. I don't know about Granny's body. I can't actually find that out where her coffin actually ended up. But all the things that were left in there were removed after vandals broke in. As you can see, the gates are kind of pushed in, and kids doing what kids do will mess things up a lot of times. So apparently that happened here. But the legend lives on. People still come out here every Halloween, and they try to communicate with Granny February. Maybe if you leave her something nice, she'll say hello to you too. Hey, this is Orville and Cliff. We're signing off. We're going to give you back over to Cliff and Tim of the Iron Mountain Hour. And thanks for that report, Orville. Hey, we're taking it back with me and Tim here in the studio. And yeah, we went over there today to Granny February's tomb. And did you ever go up there when you were a kid?
I've been up a bunch of times.
Yeah.
The rendition, I guess, of the ritual that you mentioned in the video, was it the one I'd heard was you just called out to her.
Okay.
Like, I'd heard about the food thing, but there was no way we was going to leave her a Big Mac or something. I was going to eat that. But I'd heard you supposed to go out there and call out. Probably a little bit of like the whole Bloody Mary thing probably leaked into that a little bit, because you're supposed to be like 3 times or something. Maybe there was a mirror. So I think most kids from our generation tried it a couple of times just because you're not supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, is it still a thing? Because I guess you could ask the people out there.
I don't know.
It's still a thing people do.
I don't know. I didn't see anybody up there today. I did see 2 people walking away from it, so they may have been up there to see it when I was up there today. But back when we were kids, yeah, it would have definitely been. I can remember a couple times going up there, and a lot of kids being up there.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried the thing out a couple times, and never had any luck with it. But didn't stop us from trying, and we tried Bloody Mary too. But never could get any lady in a red dress to appear in the bathroom mirror. But yeah, those stories kind of make their way around, and I could just imagine, because I was reading back on some of a man recounting his boyhood in the 50s, where they did the ritual to try to give. He didn't say anything about the mirror or the candle or anything like that, but they left her some food and said, he could have swore that they heard her saying thank you for the food. And but I was thinking about it in the 90s. There were street lights around the area.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of cars. There was the Arnie Hill up there, and then the community college across the street. So there was plenty of light, plenty of activity.
It's not secluded.
Yeah, can you imagine in the 50s? Because that place could even still be creepy when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Coming through there late at night, not so much the cemetery, but just coming through the dark part up there before you get to where the lights are. It was pretty creepy anyway. So if you could imagine in the 50s being a kid out there and looking around the cemetery, I'd say it would have had a whole different vibe.
Have to be one of the people that would be pranking them. If you could get in there and just talk to people back, somebody had to have done it at some point.
Yeah, I wonder if that's what it was. If there was somebody in the tomb.
They freaked her out like that poor girl in Jumanji. She's been running around screaming about African bats for 30 years. Somebody to this day, I swear I heard her. It sounded like a grizzly man, but
she said, "Thanks for the rolls. Do you have any wine?" But yeah. So yeah, there could have been some pranking going on there, and that would have been pretty fun. And you know, now that you mention it, I'm sure that's happened over the years. That
Maybe not definitely, but
I would say, you know, there's got to be all the kids going up there to do that over the years. There had to be some.
I mean, people are building staircases out in the middle of the woods. You
know? Yeah, that's been
maybe who knows.
Yeah, that's a meme thing. That I guess it was kind of the local meme we could have been to do that. We found a couple other local legends. Well, I've heard about these, you know, off and on. There's actually a lot in our area. And if you want to look, a good book to check out is Shane S. Simmons' Local Legends and Lore, or Legends and Lore of East Tennessee. You can find that. You can actually find Google Books has a version that you can read online. So you can find it in paperback, which is kind of tough. You can find it around here. Mr. Case sometimes will have something like that. But you can find it online and look at it. That's what I did. And there's a lot of stories. They talk about the Sensabaugh Tunnel over in
I've been over there
in Kingsport. There's things about the Rocky Fork Falls over in Unicoi, and I can remember very clearly. I was probably about 18, 19 years old, and we were over there and coming back to the car at twilight, and I saw what looked like just a red dot going through the trees. Didn't see anything else with it. And there were several of us there that saw it. We were really freaked out. Nobody really knew what to do or say or anything. We just got back to the cars as quick as we could and left. And what it looked like was a cigarette ember.
Gotcha.
But there was nobody holding it or anything. Yeah, who knows? I mean, we were out in the middle of Unicoi County, but it was pretty creepy. But a couple of the other things that I wanted to tell you about was the Siam Road,
what would that be called?
The Steel Bridge Road, yeah. The Steel Bridge incident.
R.I.P. No longer there.
Yeah, that's right. It was torn down, I think, in 2010. And they built a concrete one.
Which is way better.
But I really like the Steel Bridge.
I do miss the
For
Steel
driving
Bridge.
across, yeah, it is better. But I did like to walk on the Steel Bridge, and it was cool. It was a one lane, so
there's still one over in I guess it's like outside like Turkey Town.
Yeah,
it's not near as long.
Yeah,
but it's also not a one lane either.
Our correspondent Orville and I drove across that one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, but before we did that, well, I wanted to go ahead and tell you about the Siam incident. So I'll kick it out to Orville there at the Steel Bridge, or the remains, or the skeleton of the Steel Bridge. There's a little bit of the pillar still intact.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, he'll send it back to you, Orville. I'm here on location with Iron Mountain Hour correspondent Orville Redenborker. We're in Carter County, Tennessee at the Steel Bridge, or at the location of the old Steel Bridge off of Siam Road, Steel Bridge Road. There's lots of stories about this one being haunted too, and some of them don't really stack up with fact. The most famous one, I think, is a story about Tom Jackson and Wanda Smithson who came down here. Apparently this was, according to the legend, in the 1920s and 30s. It was a popular place for teenagers and young adults to have some privacy, romantic trysts, things like that. Well, Tom and Wanda were apparently involved in some such meeting, and as they were sitting down here, they saw another figure coming through the dark, and they assumed it to be just another couple out there for the same thing they were there for, and didn't think much of it. Well, apparently the figure approached them and stabbed Wanda multiple times and murdered her, and then stabbed Tom several times, but he was able to escape and get picked up by the police. Well, evidently in 1977 there was a report of I think it was a Norton County Sheriff's Department deputy who was driving through this area, who went to Elizabeth, and this one, Jason Guess was his name. He had a book where he actually documented that this did happen. This this sheriff's deputy goes to the sheriff's department here in Carter County and reports that he actually did, when he was going over this bridge, had his door open up and had an imprint of a person sitting in his seat, but he couldn't see anybody there. So actually, when we look a little bit further, the Swiss government actually, or a person claiming to be working for the Swiss government, says they were looking into this because there were apparently 185 documented reports, and a lot of them were people of Swiss ancestry. So this was something that made a lot of waves in Switzerland. I don't know if that's true or not. Just something I'm reading out of a lot of things I'm reading on the internet. But one thing I did find out was that this bridge actually wasn't constructed in time for Tom and Wanda to have been murdered when they were, according to the legend. And there's also there's no record of any murders happening down here, so could just be all made up based on the deputy's story. But it's pretty fun. You can come down here and check it out anytime. It's off of Steel Bridge Road, and this is the side of the old bridge. They replaced it, I think, in 2010 with this modern concrete bridge. Nowhere near as cool. But this is Cliff for the Iron Mountain Hour signing off. All right. Thanks for that report, Cliff. We're back here in the studio. And Tim, have you ever heard of that story of the Siam Bridge Road?
Yes, sure. Everybody around here has. Yeah, we used to do that one. So it wasn't necessarily Halloween specific for us. It was always fall around midnight or 3 a.m. something like that. And we'd done it with groups of our friends. We'd done it multiple times. Never saw anything. It was always creepy because, especially when you could get people that weren't from around here and they didn't know about that nightmare bump that you just demonstrated. Every steel bridge had a nightmare bump in the middle, and you could really creep people out with it. Except the one that they tore down, it had like a metal clank. When you go over it, so it was extra nice.
Yeah, it sure did. Yeah, that kind of reminds me too of Did you guys ever do the trick out there on Oklahoma Road exit where you could sit a ball on it, and basically it appeared that you were rolling downhill, but you were really going uphill. So it would look like the ball was rolling up the hill, but you're on such a slow, steep climb going up towards the mountains, towards Asheville there, that when you hit that exit, it's actually still going up. It just feels like it's going down.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a neat one to do. Yeah, we've got the story there is, kind of pretty much debunked. I mean, not necessarily that there's nothing there, but the legend of the two lovers being slain there. I guess it could have happened, and there'd be no record of it. It just kind of seems like there would be a record of it.
In the 50s, you would think.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's possible in Appalachia that you wouldn't have a very good court system.
I'm not sure when they did. When they actually built that one, I think that one was probably built around the time they built the dam. Probably, I'm just guessing, because they built the first dam there in, I think, right after or right before World War One. The Wilbur Dam. No, the Wilbur Dam. Yeah, they actually built that one first. It looks kind of more high tech, but Little Wilbur was built first. The
Earth Dam just looks like they just threw a bunch of dirt in a pile. So I get that it's less technologically.
Yeah. Well, they did that. They did that right after World War II. The Army Corps of Engineers actually built that dam for the TVA. Yeah, I found
when
that
did it break? Do you know about it breaking?
No, I didn't know about it breaking.
Okay, I guess we'll have to get a different story. But my grandma and my uncles were alive at the time, so it had to be back in the 70s maybe. The dam broke at one point because of something, and everybody out in the Siam area to this day will say that that's the reason their crops don't grow as good, is because the water washed all the nutrients, or I don't know.
Really washed the topsoil.
But I remember my dad and them talking about how they were going around the front yard in a raft.
Oh, really?
Because it was a foot of standing
water.
water.
We definitely got to do a story.
So we're going to look up when did we've had a lot of flooding. I don't want to get too off track about it. We need to look up when did Little Wilbur break, and we also need to at some point talk about I want to say it was 1998 when we had like 6 feet of flood on Roe Mountain, and then a giant thunderstorm rolled through the next day. And I think do you remember that?
Vaguely.
It didn't hit Stony Creek near as hard as it hit Hampton, and
those had a big mudslide, didn't it?
It just melted. Like Roe Mountain was covered in snow, like it is right now probably. But then a giant thunderstorm came through the next day and just rained it. So that's 2 floods I think we should look into at some point, if we can remember to come back and.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Episode, I suppose.
But yeah, that's a fun story though, and it is fun to spook your friends, and who knows, there may be something to it.
I don't know.
Who am I? I'm just some guy. But yeah, we also have another one of those old steel bridges that's still here, and it's on Smalling Bridge Road, and there's actually a legend that goes with it.
I didn't know about the legend of this one.
Yeah, I'll send it over to Cliff and Orville one more time. I'm here with Orville Redenborker again on location at the Smalling Bridge in Carter County, Tennessee. This is off Smalling Road, and if you get down here, there's an old steel bridge. I think these bridges were mostly built in the 20s when the Benborg Corporation came to town. But this one's said to be haunted. There's said to be some kind of spirit that tries to get in the car. Some versions say it's a wolf man. Other versions say it's a child. That you stop your car on the bridge at 9 o'clock at night and turn off your headlights and something gets in. I've tried it, not had any luck with anything, but see what happens for you. And thanks for that report, fellas. We're back here in the studio. Tim, you said you hadn't heard of that legend.
Went over the bridge, didn't know the legend.
So yeah, it's kind of similar to the one over there on Siam in that you are supposed to pull up to the bridge and you stop your car and you turn your headlights off, and either something tries to get in the door or you turn the car off and the car won't start. There's a couple different versions of it. There's one that apparently there was some creature under there that got shot with silver bullets.
That's very specific.
Yeah. And then,
where's Danny Busey?
Yeah. And then, the funny thing was I wasn't able to find that on the internet. I've seen it on the internet before.
You'll
but,
give me a while. I can get it back up.
Yeah, I'd say you can find it. But I just kind of pulled it from memory, and because we used to try this when you would go sit on the bridge, and I think you had to do it exactly at 9 o'clock, turn the lights off, and like I said, there was two versions: either turn the car off or just sit there. But if you turn the car off, supposedly you weren't supposed to be able to start it. If you just sat there, there was supposed to be something opens the door or something gets in the car. No, never had any luck with those either. It's like it's kind of funny how we try to.
We try to get possessed by demons or something.
Yeah. But it is fun to check out these local lore and local legends, and I think kind of deep down we feel like there's must not really be much to them, or we wouldn't be trying them out. So we're either that or we're just looking for have a death wish.
I don't know. That would be a very, very boring video. Very boring video for any listener that would want to delve into why we kind of want to scare ourselves for fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a psychological sort of thing because we do enjoy it, but it does exist, and Halloween's a good time of the year to do that. I guess it got conflated due to the spooky imagery, but that's not how it originally started, I guess. But I've never done. I've never done the Steel Bridge one.
I don't think that one was related to Halloween either. But again, if you want to check out Shane S. Simmons' book, Legends and Lore of East Tennessee, there's a lot of cool stories in there. And then a lot of them seem to be like variations on kind of the Jack tales, kind of classic Scottish, Irish, or Ulster Scot tales that kind of made their way through Appalachia with a young hillbilly boy as the hero, kind of making his way through. And sometimes he fought ghosts, sometimes he fought giants.
Do we have because a lot of areas, like if you go up north, you got the Jersey Devil, and I know we got Bigfoot stories and stuff. Is there anything specific besides Granny February else? I guess we got I don't know. I guess we got a couple of witches.
We got feral humans.
We got feral humans. Yeah.
We got the Bell Witch.
The Bell Witch. Okay, I forgot about the Bell Witch.
Where's she at? Gosh, I can't think of the name of the town now. Down towards Middle Tennessee.
Heck, I want to say Brown Mountain. That's Brown Mountain Lights.
No, we do have the Brown Mountain Lights nearby, and those are pretty cool. I've never actually seen them. We should do a special on those because
that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, we should investigate that for ourselves.
Yeah, it'd be cool to go up there and see if we can see them.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I've talked to people that said they have seen them, and I've seen some videos of what people have captured up there.
Have you seen like what? Because I've seen videos of different ones. Have you seen like the streaks or like the globes?
They look like little globes going around.
Okay.
Yeah, a little.
I've seen people secondhand. I've been up there, but I've never managed to see them. I've heard a professor, I want to say he's at ETSU, I don't remember now. They were interested in it. They were saying that they thought it was some kind of a mineral. I don't know how that explains the movement.
Okay. Well, kind of like phosphorus or magnesium burning from some other chemical reaction. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm not against the idea that you can explain everything. I'm sure at one point in time the Northern Lights probably looked like, God was talking.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was... I mean, you look at the Northern Lights now, and that's still pretty amazing.
Well, we're actually having a pretty large coronal mass ejection coming, and there's like a solar storm where the the Aurora Borealis may actually be visible as far down as Kentucky and Virginia,
Wow.
and maybe even Tennessee. Of course, we got so much cloud cover right now, we're not going to see it. But
When is it?
it's like last night and tonight.
Oh,
It's been cloudy the whole time, so if it did do it, we're probably missing it. But yeah, that does happen from time to time. It makes its way down a little closer to the center of the country. But yeah, there's all kinds of local stories that I'm sure you've heard about, and we'll try to get a bigger collection of them for next year. Hopefully, when we come back and do this, we'll have a bigger audience, and people can send us stuff leading up to it, and we can look into some of this other stuff. But I'd also like to we are going to do a UFO episode and a Nibiru episode. And
I agree. You should separate those two things. I agree that needs to be two different.
Yeah, we don't want to do those together, but they're semi-related.
They're related,
didn't
but I
want to
think
throw them out there.
They're definitely two different things because,
because when we get into the UFO discussion, a lot of those things will come up that will make it clear why that is a different thing. So tonight, though, I wanted to go ahead, and since we talked about local stuff, I wanted to talk about, Tim, have you ever had any paranormal experiences or anything that you maybe couldn't explain as far as, let's say, non-UFO, let's say a spooky experience that you can't explain?
I'll give you two.
Okay.
One that's on point and one that's not,
okay,
but probably more relevant. And the first one being on point was actually at Sensabaugh Tunnel.
Okay.
I didn't see anything spectacular as far as supernatural stuff. But in retrospect, looking back on it, what I think we ran into was people on cocaine, and they were you've seen the tunnel a lot of times it has that river running through it, which already makes it creepy in itself because you're like, I don't know if I'm supposed to go through here because there's water coming towards me.
Right.
And then it's got the spray paint and all that kind of stuff, but. Yeah, I don't know.
It just looks evil to look at the tunnel,
Yeah, but
there's two of them, aren't there? There, the Sensabaugh tunnel.
The one you drive through is not supposed to be haunted. I didn't know that at the time.
A guy you have to walk through Sensabaugh.
I used to work with. You're supposed to walk to it from there, and it's like kind of like an old style walk-through tunnel.
Yeah.
And the dude that told me this, I won't give me his name because I didn't ask permission. Was actually a very religious dude, but to this day he says he swore, or not to this day because I've not spoken to him in a minute. But back then. The two times he told me the story, he said he saw what appeared to be a man in colonial dress, but was only visible from like knee high and was opaque, I guess.
Okay.
And he said that was really random to him because he didn't know why he was seeing a guy in colonial gear. And so he went back and got in the car.
Okay.
That's the only Sensabaugh tunnel I've heard other than my probably methamphetamine people that were doing through the big tunnel that really freaked me out at the time. But the only paranormal that I would say that would actually count that I would actually submit to a forum was when I was a kid. Can't give you an age, but I was young enough to still be sleeping with my parents. I've, to this day, very, very vividly remember on multiple occasions seeing some white form just kind of walk through around the room, almost like you would pace if you were just kind of keeping watch.
Right.
But it was always one of those things where you're as a kid, like, because looking back on it now, you can look at it and be like, well, you were a kid, because I'm guessing I was probably 2.
Yeah. If
I was guessing. And you can make stuff like that up. But that's just really specific to remember.
Well, I hear a lot of stories like that. Somebody I know had a bed that was made by their grandfather. And when they reached a certain age, they started sleeping in that bed. And they would see an old man sitting on the foot of the bed. And when they brought that to their parents' attention, they said, "Oh yeah, that's your grandfather. He lives on that bed." But I think
he lives on that bed.
Yeah, or he built that bed, and that's where he stays. He watches over you. But I hear that's a pretty common
I guess
story.
that would kind of fall into more like the guardian angel.
Yeah.
Or maybe even like ancestor. Maybe you're supposed to pay homage to your ancestors because they're looking after you. And if you don't pay homage, they're like, "Well, screw you! I'm not going to look after you then. If you're not going to bring my skull out once a year, what's it worth?"
Well, I kind of wonder, do they live maybe in, if ghosts are a thing? I've heard this idea, and it was a neat idea. And I think maybe I heard it on Tim Pool's show, but maybe that ghosts live in, say, this building. In this dimension, right, as this space right here. But if you stretch it out in time, they're actually moving through the dimension of time. They're trapped in the same physical place, but this second you and I are occupying this space, but 40 years from now we're not going to be. So they would be able to move through this space physically. But I thought that was a pretty neat idea that, maybe they're trapped in the physical space, but they can move through a much larger...
like the idea that it's kind of like trapped energy.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I guess to explain that briefly would be like, if something happened that had so much human energy and emotion behind it in one spot, which is why... Because I say human energy, which would be emotion, which is why you would see a woman calmly pacing in a hallway, because that would be emotional energy. And so the theory is that sometimes all that energy gets trapped and it runs like a loop, and they're not even alive anymore. It goes literally.
It's just a mirror.
It's just it's like a blur. It's just something that it was
leftovers.
Yeah, it's like the Earth just keeps repeating it, almost like it's a mirage. It's not really happening.
It's a glitch in the Matrix. It's they deleted that memory.
Yeah, well, it's almost like I would call it like ripples, kind of like everything you do in the world causes ripples. So it's like if something that traumatic happened, it's going to cause some
the energy is still there, and it continues going. I mean, it's still taking up that space, and it's rippling through time.
I get
way to look at it.
Mirage, I guess you'd call it. My other thing, I guess, on ancestors, I don't know if I believe this or not. I think it's a more pleasant view, and I guess it goes back to China and all kinds of different places. I know I reference China a lot for some reason. I've been on a deep dive. But they do the ancestor worship. And I think that's almost like a primitive version of Saving the Skulls is a little on point. Kind of like, have you seen the very rabbinical? There's a certain sect of Jew that actually wears a little text in front of their face because there's a part in the Bible that says, keep the word of the Lord in front of your eyes at all times. And so it's like a headband. Yeah. And they wear this stick, and it literally has the Bible. Because that's what happens when we take something and we instead of throwing it out, we take it so literal. I think maybe saving your ancestors' skulls is a little on point.
Kind of.
But I think it might go with what the Navajo teach, that there's 4 different phases, and the last phase is you're supposed to look after your next people from beyond, because you literally can't do anything to help them. You're just supposed to coax, or I don't know. I don't want to put words in which they call their tribe the Diné. They don't even use the word Navajo. That was kind of like a word that was given to them by a different tribe. But anyway, I'll let you get back on point. That's my view on kind of like what's going on with Halloween. Maybe you're supposed to pay tribute to your ancestors because maybe we're not going to go. I don't know.
Maybe we need somebody to pay tribute to us and pray over our souls. And
I don't know. Maybe it's just a good fail-safe way of making sure people aren't dicks to their children or their
make sure you remember
ancestors.
Your loved ones. Yeah, your ancestors. Make sure you keep their memories alive. Yeah, that could be as simple as that, and then you make a lot of stories to make it more fun for the kids.
Yeah.
I have had a couple of unexplainable events, but the one that I would. And see, I'm not somebody who's like real into ghosts or anything, You
don't see it, so
I don't really watch ghost shows, or I like a good ghost story. I like horror movies, but I did see. When my son was really young. He was like 3-4 years old, and he liked to play in his room in the dark. And so we were playing in his room in the dark, and we were building blocks in the dark. And we look over, and the hallway light outside of his room, door was closed. The hallway light was on, so we could see the light coming in under the bottom of the door. Well, we see 2 feet standing right there at the door. They weren't there a minute ago, now they're there. So I say, shh, we're going to sneak up on, I'm thinking it's his mom, and we're going to sneak over and open the door really fast. So we sneak over there, and I jerk the door open as fast as I can, and right before I got there were feet at the bottom of that door. When I jerked it open, there was nothing there.
Okay.
I go out in the living room, look through the house, nobody's in there. Go out onto the porch, his mom is sitting there, she's smoking a cigarette, and it's got an ash like this long on it. So she's been sitting there for at least 3-4 minutes. No way that she had time to.
And you're not going to smell. You would smell smoke in the hallway too if she come in.
Yeah. So that I don't know what that was. Don't have any way to explain it. That some people call it a shadow person.
I've heard that term.
When I've looked
shadow
it up,
person. Yeah.
And in my house that I live in now, I do sometimes see just kind of things that catch my eye that look odd, and it looks like I catch motion out of the corners of my eyes.
See, I was discounting the shadow thing because I've seen lots of shadow people.
Yeah.
I guess it's always one of those things where I just kind of And I guess since it's Halloween, I cannot assume this, but I always kind of assume shadow people was as being paranoid.
Yeah.
You know, that
Yeah,
sort of thing.
that's what it feels like. Yeah,
Yeah.
And it's like where you expect to see them. But I've had a lot of people that have been to my house say that they see weird things
More
there
in
too,
your house.
before I say anything about it. I've had that happen several times in my house, and my house was only built in like 1978, but it was built. It is near Watauga Lake, which is near the old Watauga River, so who knows what kind of who may have been through there before, but either way.
What was
it's one of
what
those
was
things.
the land on there at one point? You know?
Yeah. Who passed through there? But that's kind of one of those things. When I see it, I can kind of dismiss it because it's not clear and plain as day. It's like I'm looking into the corner over there. Where it's kind of dark. I see, what looks like movement, and it looks like to be a human shape or a dog shape. But then if I actually look at it, I can't see anything there. So it kind of feels like it's not really there. But I've never had that in other homes that I've lived in. And I don't even really do it now. It kind of was more when I first moved in there. But then the thing with the what I call the shadow
thing.
person.
That's not typical shadow person.
Yeah, that was totally different. That was something I could plainly see.
Yeah.
And there was no doubt in my mind that there was somebody standing there, and it wasn't. I wonder, is that? Can I? No, it's not anything. It was no. There was definitely somebody there.
Right. So I couldn't group that with the shadow.
So I can't explain that, but that's the only real paranoid experience or paranoia experience that I've had. So yeah, to finish the show out, I've been watching. I kind of am a horror movie guy, kind of all year, but I don't really like newer horror movies. And I've not given a lot of newer ones a chance, so maybe that's not fair. But I started checking out kind of around the early 2000s. Really lost faith in the horror movie genre for a while.
I think the whole industry is kind of suffering from the same thing. Well, I guess you could say maybe not superheroes, but that's because I think what is affecting the stuff that we like is actually what helps the comic book movies, which is they rely so much on the big budget stuff.
I never cared for the comic book movies. I don't even.
No, I'm saying like when you just got people running around shooting missiles, Iron Man, like the more effects that you have is only going to make that movie better.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're talking about horror, $145 million doesn't necessarily make a better horror movie.
No, it doesn't.
I
like the old practical effects of the 80s and
like the Thing.
The Thing. That's one of my favorites, man. I've watched 3 John Carpenter movies since like 9 o'clock last night. Watched Halloween, the original. I watched The Village of the Damned, the remake of the 50s movie, and then I watched Prince of Darkness this afternoon. So Carpenter's one of my favorites, and he's up on your list too.
Well, that movie specifically, The Thing, like, I just thought that was I didn't understand it back when I was watching it, why I thought that was such a troubling movie. But, like, I think looking back on it now, the reason that movie bothers people so much is because it's a hopeless sort of endeavor. Man. The Thing is always going to be there, and you're going to die at some point.
It's almost like the political idea that we talked about of the other.
Yeah.
You got to find out who the other is.
It reminds me a lot of that game everybody was playing there for a minute, Among Us. I didn't play it, but I watched some video game player.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. I was like, man, this seems like CIA programming to make everybody start going after each other.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
To start going after each other. Let's train everybody to figure out who's sus.
Yeah. Right.
Because I think in the end, to accidentally go to conspiracies. I think that's what it's trying to be. Like, you are training people to self-police.
Right.
I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and you see a lot of that in the culture as far as the kind of horror movies. We've seen a lot of mankind's greatest fears brought to life, and fear can often be used to control people. Are there any horror movies you can think of where you feel like they do that as far as?
Where I feel like are more like predictive programming.
Yeah.
Horror movies in particular. Well, let me think, because as much as we like John Carpenter, I would have to include him in there with my.
Well, like Joss Whedon's Cabin in the Woods, kind of the idea that the government has to scare us and it has to kill us and keep us.
You think they got Cabin in the Woods? You think that was inspired by the internet talking about that stuff so much, though? Back early. Well, I really wasn't an internet gremlin until the early 2000s.
Yeah.
But I remember people were talking back then that that the reason conspiracy theories were the reason they were invented to begin with was to make us go down certain directions,
Mm-hmm.
and so they would create certain boogeymen, and like it's very common talk in the conspiracy world to talk about the CIA as what created flat Earth to begin with,
Yeah.
to make a lot of people just spiral and start
Right.
believing something so ridiculous people wouldn't listen to them.
Right.
And so I was just wondering, I don't know necessarily who did the Cabin in the Woods. I just wonder if that was drawn from the internet talking about it.
It was written by Joss Whedon, who was a writer on the Roseanne shows. First place I started seeing him.
He wrote for
and then
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
He wrote Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He wrote Toy Story.
Did he?
Yeah, so he's kind of got all over the place.
He's-
And he
yeah.
did. One of the ones it's kind of a staple in culture is The Exorcist.
Oh, yeah,
we've
yeah.
seen that one for I guess since the early '70s is when that one
Mhm.
came out. You kind of had that one, and then the popularity of it kind of led to more things like The Omen being mainstream.
Omen, I think, was kind of like I think The Exorcist is a great example because it was so, like, it really ruffled the church's feathers.
Yeah.
But I think The Omen was almost like a direct counteractor. They were like, oh, this made them mad. Let's hold my beer. I think that's what The Omen was.
Yeah, well, The Omen. Those were some of my favorite films growing up. I always liked The Exorcist. Pet Cemetery.
Pet Cemetery's a good one.
You know,
It might not hold up. I've not watched it in a long time.
no, it does. they made a remake, and I haven't had the heart to watch it. I've heard it's actually pretty good.
I tried.
But you didn't like it?
My issue was I'm wanting to say they replaced the old good guy that tells dude to stay out of the cemetery is Herman Munster.
Yeah.
They replaced him with, I'm wanting to say, what is his name? He's the guy that was Lord Farquaad.
Oh, you don't want to cast that guy.
I can't even. I can't. I don't know. Maybe sometimes you just miscast. I just didn't. I don't know. It didn't have the same feel to it.
Yeah.
I guess. That was a really creepy movie back in the day.
John
Lithgow. That's it. Yes.
That's who played. Okay.
John Lithgow. And
I
I thought,
like John Lithgow. So
Yeah, but
I don't like it.
but can you see him as
An
a
old
a
Mainer.
old wise farmer type?
Old Mainer,
Because he
no.
doesn't have a deep voice. He doesn't have a fatherly
I
appearance.
don't see him as Judd. No.
I still see him down there in the prison, sword fighting with magazines with those guys in whatever movie that was. I can't remember what it is now.
I'd like to see his Don Quixote.
That'd be good.
He did play Don Quixote in like a made-for-TV movie, and I've heard it's really good, but I've not been able to even find it to like bootleg or to buy
Oh,
or
wow.
anything. But it looked
I would like to
cool.
see him as a crazy dog.
I like him in a lot of roles. So,
But that's my issue. See my issue though. I don't
But
see him as a farmer. I like
I
Lithgow
would
too.
not like him in that role. I wouldn't think. Just
No,
from
don't
some-
go to the cemetery. The ground is sour.
Nay,
No.
don't go there.
No, it's a miscast.
It's sour, I tell you. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Now you're getting it. Now you're getting it.
Yeah, I don't really see that working out. Not for me personally, anyway. But yeah, I used to have this idea that if you remember AMC channel, they
Mhm.
did like Spook Fest or something. I can't remember what it was.
Monster Vision.
Monster or something.
Well, you had
Oh yeah, Joe Bob Briggs.
Yeah, Joe Bob Briggs was my favorite one.
He was awesome. And I don't remember what channel he was on. USA probably. I think they
it's
did
TNT,
USA
I wanna
up all
say.
night. Yeah, TNT. And
He also worked for Comedy Central for a while.
he did. I did
Yeah.
not know that.
I'll tell you about that after that because it's off the point. But I like Joe Bob Briggs.
No, I always liked Monster Vision, man. That was the place to get see B horror movies like Piranha, or
Yeah.
Mosquito, or just those classic gory slashers with all the gory slashing removed for cable network, and you could see the aftermath of the giant mosquito impaling the person, but they wouldn't actually show.
Some of those cats were hilarious.
Yeah, they were. What was the movie? Did you ever see Survival Island 2, The Pinata?
No,
Oh man,
no. It sounded like the title wasn't going to stop though.
Survival Island 2, Pinata. Yeah, it was one of those classic terrible horror movies with teenagers doing drugs and having sex and being
Yeah.
slaughtered by the local, whatever the local thing is that kills kids.
One trick or treater.
Yeah,
That's it. That's the first one we're gonna have. So don't worry, folks.
I'd be surprised if we have any. We never have any on our
I
street.
never have them. I didn't have a single one last year.
We live on a cul-de-sac with about 10 houses on it, and I guess most kids just figure it's not worth the time to stop by there for 10
Yeah.
houses.
Well, this is a cul-de-sac up here. Plus, I live on a death hill.
Yeah.
So if kids do come to my door, we give them
Kids
a whole
from-
candy bar.
yeah,
They
yeah.
get a whole candy bar. It's like you deserve it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we got a big bag, but we never end up giving any of it out. But
What's your? I guess since we're on Halloween and Halloween and horror movies just go right together. Was there like a horror movie that ever just like you had to watch every Halloween?
Well, I mean, I don't think there really is. I've always been a fan of the Halloween movie itself, but I can't say I've watched every Halloween. And this year, before I watched Halloween 3. Because it's kind of one that gets ignored because it doesn't have Michael Myers.
It's the one with the witch, season
of
the witch.
Yeah, it's like the masks and the mind control and the. It's a crazy story.
It's a weird one, yeah.
Yeah, I really like it though.
I think people miss Jason so much that movie got a little less credit than it should have. Because
exactly.
I think they were trying to like be like, all right, let's do something cool. Oh, you want this? Okay.
Well,
let's do this
originally Halloween was supposed to be a horror anthology, right?
Yep.
And Carpenter was going to do the first one, and they were kind of going to have other, it's going to be an ongoing thing, and so that was one they already had planned for the second part. But they didn't really anticipate.
Well, they pretty much made him bring him that. They were like, look, the second one has to have Jason. At least wrap it up because
Michael
he was
Myers.
such a Mike Myers because he was such a block, but it was such a success.
Yeah,
and he was like, all right, let's do this again. And then the third, and people
didn't want it. Yeah, they wanted
it.
more Michael Myers, and so you got several Michael Myers. The same old thing. Michael stabbing people. I didn't care for him after 3. They were
beating the dead horse.
Yeah, exactly, and they were cashing in on that, and the Halloween H2O.
Still, I mean, they've cut his head off a couple times. He's becoming Jason now.
Yeah.
Like, once upon a time, he would disappear, and you'd be like, oh.
Right. Well, the first movie, he gets shot, and he's falls off the balcony, but he doesn't get killed. I always assumed.
He just disappears.
He was mortal and didn't actually die. He just ran off and made his way back for Halloween 2. But kind of Jason, like you said, he you can't seem to kill that guy. And I never was huge on the Friday the 13th. I think I've seen most of them.
I've seen all of them, if I'm being honest. And,
yeah.
It was more... Okay, the Jason movies are almost like a Power Rangers episode after a while.
Yeah.
Well, you knew the formula. They're like, here's the monster. Oh, we can't do it. Monster, join up. Oh, even better, big sword,
Yeah.
And it's always the same thing with the Jason. We're going to have sex for a while. He's going to knock a few of us off. And then somebody's suddenly going to attain some strange new power, including psychic abilities in part 7, I'm wanting to say it was. Which they did that thing with Freddy Krueger, too. It was one called the Dream Masters or Dream Warriors or something.
I was a fan of the Freddy franchise.
Freddy Krueger, if you could get past the absurdity of all the...
Yeah, but
you'd like it.
They built on... it was a lot more... I mean, even though it did have the funny, it had the humor... And it had the absurdity factor, but it also had some brain food in there too.
It did, because it was based on the idea of fear. It wasn't just a monster you couldn't get rid of.
And it had a lot of ancient philosophy written into it too, just not really...
Including the idea that the people we should be afraid of, the people that are after children.
Yeah, that's
dun, 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 vampire, Freddy Krueger. That should bother you right there, though, that the Freddy Krueger was a child rapist.
Yeah.
And yet, I don't know, Harley Quinn is too. Well, not a child rapist, but
a child murderer.
No superhero sins. Back into horror. I saw so many Harley Quinn costumes on Facebook.
Oh, really?
She just popped into my head subconsciously, I guess. But yeah, I would say that Freddy Krueger is overall a better.
I don't know. He was a kind of more. I got turned on to Freddy Krueger with the Freddy's Dead movie, which was supposed to be the last one in the franchise.
What number was that one?
That was, I don't know, 6 or 7 maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, it came out. There was the Dream Warriors, the Dream Child. I think was number 5. Dream Warriors was 3. Dream Child was 5, and then I think there was.
What was the one where he was blue? It was Wes Craven's something or other. It was completely disconnected
Wes Craven's New Nightmare or something.
New Nightmare. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
I didn't care for that one either. They made one in 2010 too that I haven't watched. I've been like. It's kind of like the same thing with the newer Pet Cemetery.
Oh,
I just
the guy that played
myself to watch it.
The guy that played Rorschach and Watchmen plays him. I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah,
I want to say he's the guy that plays Freddy, which that's pretty good. He's pretty.
Well,
creepy.
it actually looked like it was going to be good, but it's one of those like that I couldn't bring myself to watch, and then I kind of forgot about it. So now I really want to watch it. But yeah, that Freddy was always kind of more of my favorite one, and you had even like in the Dream Warriors, it was like based on a role playing game kind of.
Yeah.
And you had, the original Freddy. And I didn't know this till later. I watched like an anthology on, I don't know what you would call it, but basically it was looking at all the Freddy movies and kind of the ideas in them. and the second one is like a really it's a pro-gay movie, and I didn't realize it.
I'll
It
have
has
to look
all the-
into
yeah,
that. That's
yeah.
funny.
It has a lot of these little gay.
Not Top Gun.
I don't know about that. I've not seen it. Seen Top Gun in a long time, but it's like it has all these little secret things in it that are kind of the movie looks like it was kind of made for a gay audience who.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and you see the boy. He's not really interested in the girl. She's kind of all over him. The main character, I think, it's played by Johnny Depp.
That's
or is
the first one.
No, that's
Sure,
the first
Johnny
one.
Depp,
Johnny
yeah.
Depp's the first one. Yeah, so it's the second one. But the guy, he's not really interested in the girl. He lives in the house where the girl lived in the first. In the first Friday the 13th, or the first Nightmare on Elm Street. He lives in the same house, and he like starts finding about Freddy by reading her diaries.
Okay, because he only exists if you're afraid of him.
Yeah.
He starts thinking about it.
But if you remember, he gets into trouble at school, and he goes into the gay bar there where he encounters the coach, when the coach is dressed in leather.
No, I've completely forgotten about this one.
Oh yeah, well there's a lot of there's
Okay.
a lot of little stuff in there that you didn't really notice when you were watching it, but and then you start thinking about it, and okay, I can see where that's coming from. But that was I always enjoyed that movie. And my favorite one though I think was the Dream Warriors, because it was kind of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, that too. Like there was always this thing in the Freddy ones where they would kind of beat him, but just barely.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Dream Warriors, it was like the first time that even like the nerdy wizard guy kind of kicked Freddy's butt for just a minute before he finally got him.
Yeah.
So it was a nice change of pace to watch that one too.
I always liked, and you were talking about it when you were talking about Friday the 13th, how they always attained a new power. There was one, I think it was in Jason Takes Manhattan. I always remember or no, this was in Jason. I can't remember. They all
Jason Goes to Manhattan is the one where it ends with him as a little boy. Spoiler alert. Him as a little boy at the bottom of the thing, and everybody was like, "What's that even supposed to mean?" But then they brought him back. You remember Freddy versus Jason?
Yeah. I actually liked that.
I thought if you could once again,
it was stupid.
It's the same reason if you go into it like, this is not going to be it's a fucking Jason movie. It's going to be stupid.
Dude,
it
was
just like it for what it is.
But I couldn't do the same thing with like Alien and Predator. I hated that movie. I loved Freddy.
I really thought those were always just really, really missed. Like they really could have done a lot with those. But like if you were watching Jason X in outer space, you really thought that was going to be good. Whereas with like Aliens versus Predator, that's a pretty cool concept.
Those are both great franchises that I've liked most of the movies. I've liked most of the Alien movies. I liked Predator and Predator 2. After that, I really wasn't really interested in much more Predator, to be honest. But
First one was really good. Second one was better than I gave it credit for at the time.
Yeah.
I like the idea of Alien versus Predator with the whole pyramid thing. If they would have pulled it off just a little bit better. But man, do you remember? Man, I just had like one of those like lightning hitting your brain moments where you remember something you completely forgot. Do you remember I want to say it's probably mid-90s movie called. I want to say it was called Dark Angel originally. I want to say they renamed it I Come in Peace, and it was this towering like Nordic looking alien guy who would find humans, strap them up, give them crazy amounts of heroin to get them high, and then he would stick a thing in the middle of their head and suck the juices out of their brain and make a drug out of it. And then he would go back to outer space and sell it.
That.
It's about intergalactic drug dealers. I'm pretty sure it's called I Come in Peace. And I don't know why in the world. And that's a Drano Crown, mother. Anyway, we're talking about vampires, baby. I don't know why they hit my head. It's pretty sure it's called I Come in Peace. We'll come back to that, but after we stop. But
oh no, that's cool. We're fixing to wind it up here, but. Horror movies kind of hold a special place in my heart. There are certain ones of them, like The Thing, for example. That's one of those that's just it just makes me comfortable to put it on. Like if I put it on around Halloween time and fall time of the year, and I want to decide I'm gonna watch The Thing, it almost always puts me to sleep immediately.
That's crazy to go to sleep and stuff like that. I could fall asleep to the X-Files though, but that's a little less gruesome than The Thing. I can imagine you sitting there dozing off all warm and comfortable. About the time that guy has the big, like, crazy candy teeth bite that guy's hands off.
And those effects are so good. And another movie that had such good effects like that, I think this was a Clive Barker, In the Mouth of Madness. Have you ever seen it? I can't remember if it's Clive Barker now that I think about it or not. It may be a John Carpenter. Actually, I think it is a John Carpenter. It's part of the trilogy, the Nihilist trilogy, The Thing, The Mouth of Madness, and the Prince of Darkness.
Okay.
But In the Mouth of Madness is kind of a Lovecraftian horror tale. It's kind of a film noir kind of motif with the Lovecraftian story mythology basically as kind of the background. And it's a guy he's writing stories, and kind of the stories start coming to life basically. But it kind of ends up in way creepier territory than that. But yeah, if you check that one out, I think you'll really enjoy it if you're a fan of John Carpenter. And there's a lot of his movies that they share the same cast, and they do a really good job together. And he's a fine director, and he makes most of the music in his films too. And they are, they're not cinematic masterpieces, but they're just fun films that have some thought behind them. They're not too deep, but they make you think a little bit, and they give you a little more than a jump scare, although they do give you a good jump scare too. But yeah, that's about all I have for tonight, Tim. You want to finish us up with anything here?
Hogweed? No.
No, just Hogweed.
You want to get Hogweed? We can get Hogweed out of the way real quick.
Yeah, it's
and then I guess after that, Hogweed is, and if you're from up, I guess, New England, you probably knew about this. We didn't know about this until very recently. Hogweed is essentially a 7-foot tall carrot, right? If the carrots are underground, right?
It's kind of like the original thing. It looked like a giant carrot.
Yeah, okay, well imagine,
maybe.
Like the big carrot has the white sprouts on the top of it and everything. Imagine like you would see almost like the little white flowers on the side of the road.
Okay.
They're huge though.
Right.
And so if you look up hogweed, it's taken over giant parts of Russia to the point that Russia has already acknowledged at some point we're going to have to kind of take care of this. Like, they're already taking care of this but they're going to have to really take care of it, because the history of hogweed starts in Russia, and they call it Stalin's Revenge. I'm thinking in Poland, and they thought it was a better nutrient source because it's a 7-foot tall carrot,
right?
And they were trying to find a good way to feed cows. Thought it was they'd found a real cheat for how they were going to bulk the cattle up. It also, I don't know how in the world they didn't notice this, but it contains a chemical that I can't pronounce the name of that has that photosensitive stuff to where if it gets on you, nothing happens, but as soon as sunlight hits it blisters up,
right?
Like way worse than poison ivy does. So it's worse than urushiol when you're talking sunlight. And they planted this stuff everywhere in Russia, and it's taken over. And now it came across, I guess, Canada and places like that. It's been in New England, like New York, upstate New York, and places like that for a while. Because all the videos that I could find on hogweed in the United States is always people from up north going, here's how you get rid of this without ending up in the emergency room. And they show you how to take a shovel, and it sounds just like a carrot when they cut the top off. But essentially, Stalin's Revenge has made it down as far as Virginia now. As of 2017, there was a kid that got into some, and it's brutal, people. So look up hogweed. Finally got hogweed out of my system. Glad I got to tell you about Stalin's Revenge. It's eating up Russia.
That's not the only revenge that Stalin sent through Virginia, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a topic for another tale. We do want to do. I do want to do. We have a Nibiru, Return of Nibiru show coming up. We're going to be meeting with our friends Jonathan and Dustin. They're going to tell us all about Nibiru. They know a lot about it, and they're part of the band Decade of Deceit. They actually wrote an album in relation to this topic, so check them out. Or if you just look up Decade of Deceit on
I think a lot
YouTube.
of John. I think he's got the Ether Weaver. If that's what I'm saying, it's
him
and Goff have it's like an all synth project.
Yeah.
I think they've churned out probably 3 albums over the course of COVID. So
Yeah,
kudos to that.
Yeah,
I applaud anybody for creating in these times instead of just wallowing in misery.
that's what I've been doing.
Trying not to, but yeah, definitely.
No, not wallowing in misery, but I haven't been creating like I should be.
Well, there you go. Like that's a good way. Like if you want to check out. Are they coming on next week? Or
I don't have them down yet. I just know they had to be after today.
Okay.
So they had a show Friday night, so they didn't want to come over right after the show. But we'll get them on in the near future. We'll talk about Nibiru, the return of Planet X, and that kind of goes into a whole lot of lore. We even go back to like Godzilla from the 1950s in Japan. They were talking about Planet X. So
if you want to hear me go full moron. I'm pretty sure Jonathan and Goff could probably drag full moron Tim out of it.
Oh, I guarantee it. And that'll be a sight to see. But we'll see you next week, I'm not sure if we'll have them next week or it may be a little bit after that, but we've also going to do shows on local films that were filmed locally. Hollywood productions. We're going to do stories on UFOs. We're going to do stories on the dam and the flooding of Butler.
That's a good topic.
How some of these may be related. We're also going to be revisiting smart poles and smart cities and the Great Reset in our area. So look around, you look for signs of it, and discuss it with us. Send us show tips at the Iron Mountain Hour at gmail.com. I'm going to try, instead of going to the LBRY right now, I'm going to go ahead and try to start uploading to Rumble. That way, we'll just have another platform that we can get it out there on. And so I will link to the Rumble channel, and they have a whole tool that you have to use to upload, so I got to figure all that out. But I'm going to go ahead and try to get this up there tonight, and I'll try to go ahead and get the other ones up there. So new stuff coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you stick with us. Comment, shoot us emails, and let's make this show more, and let's make it about what you guys want to talk about too, because there's lots of interesting things that I don't hear about unless somebody tells me about them. So
I'm excited. I haven't done the alien thing in a long time. I'm actually excited now. I'm like,
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, like those are the guys to talk to.
All right. Well, happy Halloween, everybody, and we'll see you next week. And before we close this one out, I want to say thank you to my wife, Brandy, for helping me do the research and doing the location shots on this. And I also want to say happy anniversary, baby. I love you.